Hi, good morning. My name is Pat McNaught with tRIPr Manufacturing, and today we're doing an instructional video on how to set your tRIPr correctly in the field. So we'll start with the backbone of the machine. We'll start with the toolbar. Understanding that whether it's a mounted machine like this or an XD pull type machine, the toolbar needs to run parallel to the soil surface or slightly tilted back. Never tilted forward. If it's tilted forward, you'll have a very negative effect on row unit performance. On the 3-point machine, obviously we do that with the center link, lengthening or shortening the center link. On the XD pull type, we'll do that in conjunction with donuts on the lift cylinders and potentially raising or lowering the bull pull hitch on the tongue. But it's very critical that the toolbar runs level or slightly tilted back. Next, we'll go to the down pressure springs that are on each individual row unit. Typically they are set from the factory and don't require any effort on your part or the dealer part to set row unit down force. The shank point is so aggressive that the row unit naturally wants to pull itself into the ground. So typically you're not going to have to mess with these springs at all. Next, the depth banded coulter. Obviously there's no adjustment here. The one thing to make sure of is that the depth band portion of the coulter is in full contact with the ground so that you don't have any gap between this coulter and the soil surface. If you do, typically the row unit is riding on a layer of compaction, and the solution for that is to lower the shank. And we'll talk about that more in a little bit. The coulter itself is designed to cut the residue. That's its only job. If it doesn't cut the residue, this will plug. Next, row cleaners, whether it's the standard fixed row cleaner like this one or the floating row cleaner option, we only want to move a little bit of residue. We don't want to move any soil. If we move soil with these, what we're going to end up doing is creating a hole and lowering the strip lower than the surface of the field, and we don't want to do that. So this is a good example. We're just barely skipping the top of the surface of the soil with this row cleaner, and we're really only moving residue. In high residue corn, as an example, you only want to move about 70% of the residue. Going back to the machine protection linkage, this is a shear bolt linkage. We also have an automatic reset linkage. The only thing you need to know as far as field settings with this linkage is there is no adjustment. So whether it's a shear bolt or an auto reset row unit, it requires no effort from the operator to change anything. Next, we go back to the shank. This is pretty critical. One of the pillars of this machine is to shatter the row unit compaction. And to do that, we need to be below that compaction layer that occurs in just about every field. I use a potentiometer like this here to find the compaction in the field. And the target is to have your shank point a half an inch to an inch below the bottom of that compaction layer. You'll see in this field here that we have a compaction layer starting about 2 inches below the soil surface, and it's actually about 6 inches in depth total from the soil surface. So this machine is set at 7 inches, and we're going directly below the compacted layer, and we're shattering that compaction. Another thing that you can do with the shank is this shank is a liquid shank, has 2 independent liquid tubes that can be set independently from your shank depth. So as an example, if you want to have your shank set at 9 inches and you want to put fertilizer on at 7 inches, you can do that. Or if you have your shank set at 11 inches and you want to put fertilizer on at 7 and a different fertilizer on at 4, we can do that. If it's a dry shank, the dry tube and the liquid tube are also independent of each other, and you can run dry and liquid at the same time, dry and anhydrous at the same time, or in this configuration, anhydrous and liquid at the same time. Next, we'll go back to the wavy coulters. Depth is pretty critical on these. We want to run them as deep as we can without burying the hub in the soil. The deeper we run them, the more tillage action they do, the more compaction alleviation they do. The width typically is grower preference. Most strips are probably 10 to 12 inches wide. The reason for that is with a planter, we want to make sure we maintain that planter row unit right in that strip. You've got 2 depth gauge wheels that are 3.5 inches wide plus a true V, gives you about 8 inches. RTK is awesome, but it's not perfect. So we want to leave a little grace there. So having a strip that's at least 10 inches wide is probably the optimum width. And if you're a little bit more than that, it's not going to hurt anything. Depth is obviously adjusted up and down here with this standard, and width is obviously adjusted here by loosening these cast arms and moving them back and forth. As I stated, the deeper we can run these, the better off we're going to be. The basket, understand that the only thing that we're trying to do with the basket is to level the strip and make it consistent. The last thing we want to do is install a whole bunch of compaction that we just removed. So a good indication of whether your basket is set right or not is when it's in the ground. You should be able to just simply lift it without too much effort, and you can see the level strip that the machine leaves. All in all, that really concludes all the things that we're going to talk about as far as settings on the tRIPr row unit. The one thing that we do like to point out is you'll notice that each individual ground engaging component has a set bolt and a set screw to lock it into place. This is pretty critical as far as row unit longevity. If you set your shank depth with this pin and you leave these set screws out, this shank is going to rattle around in the cast and wear it out and create quite an expensive repair going forward. So make sure with the row cleaner, the shank, and the closing coulters or the wavy coulters that once you get them set to the desired depth or setting, that you use this jam bolt and you lock it solid so it can't rattle around and wear. If you do that, this machine will last a long time. So basically this concludes our instructional video on how to set a tRIPr. If you have any questions, feel free to call the product support team at Manufacturing, and thank you for your time.